Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben, and in today's video we'll be looking at a review for Mushroom Blues by Adrian M. Gibson. I'm gonna be honest with you, I first heard about this book from Daniel Green's channel when he was reviewing, I think it was a weekly recap. I kind of picked it up as like a funny haha because it is what is being marketed as fungal pop, which is like steampunk or diesel core, but with funguses, with mushrooms. I thought it would just be like a weird, quirky book and get some sort of like base enjoyment out of it. But I'm telling you, this is a really tightly plotted and amazingly written detective fiction, and I was surprised to find out is Gibson's first novel. It was amazing to me that this was someone's first because it seemed so well written, it seemed so well realized, and so I wanted to take some time and talk about it. I really do think that it's something that you should be checking out. Mushroom Blues follows Henrietta Hoffman, a detective in the city of Neo-Kinoko. She notably has a fear and aversion of fungus and mold, which is a real big problem in a world where there are mushroom people with their own society completely based around the idea of mushrooms as architecture and building materials, and who emit spores that she has to take medication for so she doesn't get infected. It's a bad place to be if you are averse to mushrooms. Detective Hoffman has now been paired up with Namiko Koji, a Japanese, that's what the mushroom people are called, a Japanese cop who is kind of her, at first, reluctant partner throughout this story. In addition to being fungal phobic, Detective Hoffman is clearly racist against this group of fungus people. She uses derogatory terms for them heavily at the beginning of this book. She does not hide her distaste for the way they live, for their part in society. And it's really interesting to see a character who is not like the bastion of social justice and of social reform, and who is caught up in the same prejudices that permeate her society. Hoffman and Namiko are investigating a string of child murders, of Japanese child murders. Their investigation leads them deeper and deeper into the world of the Japanese, their society, their culture, much to the chagrin of Hoffman. One of the aspects I really enjoyed about this book is just the characterization of both the major players and minor players. It's great to see a book that deals with this kind of racial tension in a way where neither side comes out looking like the morally superior or right choice. We have characters on both sides who are dismissive, racist, bigots, and we have characters on both sides who are trying to extend olive branches, trying to repair the damaged relationship between these two groups. And it was just really refreshing to see it, neither side being presented as a monolithic good or evil. This is an excellent noir detective story. It definitely follows the kind of plot that you would expect to see in something like an early Dresden, or even in a Hammett or Raymond Chandler style of detective investigation. Characters get chased down, they get beat up, they get roughed up as they try their best to figure out what is going on behind the scenes. It really did strike me with this mixture of detective fiction and fantasy elements as akin to some of the early Dresden books. Mushroom Blues is a book that wears its influences on its sleeves. The characters go to a bar where Faye and the Valentines are playing, a clear nod to Cowboy Bebop. They listen to music by the Dresdens that include such songs as Death Masks, the titles of these books. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that Gibson is both aware of these titles and is trying to pay homage to them with his writing. Early Dresden really was, at its core, hard-boiled detective fiction, and that's the same vibe that I get from Mushroom Blues. Another point of reference, though not directly mentioned or alluded to within the story, is J. Wells' Prospero War series, in that we have the same kind of fantasy elements meeting with crime fiction setup within Mushroom Blues. This one deals more with magic as a drug, and here we have the Japanese, the mushroom people, as our sci-fi fantasy element. Also, the focus on a female protagonist, I think, makes these two series equate pretty well together. So this is another one that, if you are a fan of, I think you would like Mushroom Blues. One other really interesting aspect of the book, separate from its strength as detective fiction, is its use of the Japanese as a metaphor for the Japanese during post-World War II Allied occupation of Japan. The Japanese are clearly Asian-coded. The Japanese use honorifics at the end of names, such as in Japan there's kun or san. Here we have things like kato or jiro. They drink herbal tea. They drink rice wine. And there's even a character called MacArthur. So it's obvious that this is an intentional concept being introduced in the story. I'd also argue the fungal net might reflect the general sense of Japanese society that is much more group focused versus individual focused for the West, in America. I found that a really interesting concept and a really interesting way to couch this story in yet another layer of interpretation. You can enjoy your hard-boiled detective fiction, you can enjoy your weird mushroom people, but you can also see a commentary on the occupation of Japan by Western forces. And in that depiction I mentioned, where neither side really comes out looking like the hero or the villain, you get a much more nuanced portrayal than we often get here in the West of the relations between these two groups. My only real criticisms of the book have to do with pacing. I feel like there comes a point in the investigation where they have solved part of the mystery, and you can tell because you still have 30% of the book left or 40% of the book left that this is not the end of the story. But usually when that happens in these types of detective fiction, you have the initial wrap up and then the turn, and then you wrap that up rather quickly. Here it felt like we had that initial wrap up, we had the turn, and then it took a very long time to finally get to the conclusion. And by the end of the story, I did feel like it was dragging just a little bit. In addition to that, there's a little bit too much Deus Ex Machina going on in the story. On at least two occasions, Hoffman is saved through the sudden appearance by another character to come and rescue her. To the story's credit, those moments of Deus Ex Machina are very brief, and Hoffman very quickly jumps into a role of being an active character and fighting against the people that have caught her or whatever situation she's needed to get out of. So I did appreciate that there was never a point where she gets into a situation and has to be completely rescued and is in no way having agency in that moment. This might just be a trope of the genre, right? This is kind of expected to a certain extent in your detective fiction to have these somewhat miraculous escapes or these last minute turns. At least in all those cases, it never felt like Hoffman was a damsel in distress. She was never at a point where she wasn't willing to fight and to take matters into her own hands. I ended up giving Mushroom Blues 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this book. I think it's really a strong opening from Gibson. I think that if you have any interest at all in the mashup, the fusion of detective fiction and fantasy sci-fi, that you would do well to pick up this story. I'm very much looking forward to the next entry. This is the Hoffman Report Book 1, and so it is already set up as being a series of books, and I am eagerly awaiting where the story will go next. I went into this expecting it to be quirky and weird, and like that would be it. I talked a bit in my review on the Battle of the Linguist Mages, how that book had the quirky, crazy plot, but didn't have the substance, thematic coupling behind it to make it an exceptional story. And I think that Mushroom Blues does have that. It has the crazy mushroom-themed society. It has these insane chases, and then it also has the strong themes of racial tension, forgiveness, of gradual acclimation to a society, of friendship and camaraderie that really do elevate this above something that's just bombastic like Linguist Mages. Mushroom Blues is available now as an ebook or in paperback. It will be available for hardcover next Tuesday, April 2nd. We'll have an audiobook out in April or May. That's a TBD thing. So if you've got any interest in this story, I highly recommend you go out and pick it up. It was an excellent read, something that had everything that I'm looking for. Crazy setting, interesting characters, interesting world building, fun detective fiction plot, and the thematic backing to unite all those elements together in a really tight and entertaining package. If Mushroom Blues sounds like a story you'd be interested in, you might want to check out my review of Battle of the Linguist Mages, which has that same sort of crazy style to it. And there's another review up here as well if you want to take a look at something else that I've enjoyed that is a little bit quirky and offbeat. I hope your reading journey is going well as always. I will see you on the next one. Until then, take care.